Here is the first of our online tutorials, and it will just be reviewing some of the basic methods of editing in the Avid timeline. These are things that we've gone over, so this is a bit of a refresher. And again, with all of these, I hope you download them and are able to use them in future classes and endeavors. This lesson will be editing basics. We're going to go over now some of the basics, things we kind of went through, and I'll make sure you have this to refer to in the future. So as we know, the Avid project workflow window over here, we have our bins, and this is where we keep our stuff. So over here we can see I've loaded up the interviews, and I'm going to click on the script view, it's called, so I can see that a little better. I'm going to move over into that corner, and so you have the option of text view, thumbnail view, and this column or script view, so I can see what I have here. And the idea, as we know, is that we get our material into our bins, and file, input, source browser, go through that. There's a tutorial sheet on that, or input media. There are two different ways to do it. Again, refer to the tutorial sheet. And then once we have items here, we put them into our composer window. So I'm going to take her, drag her over, and then find a place that I want to begin.
Hi,
Hi,
my name is Andrea Ramos, and I am a volunteer foster rehabilitator for SNAR Animal Rescue.
Good. So I put an in point beginning and out point at the end, I and O on the keyboard. And then when that's selected, we use these arrows here to start assembling our sequence. Okay, splice in. We'll put the image in between previous shots. Overwrite, we'll add it to a blank space or cover what's there. So this is the source window, the record window. Going to overwrite it in, and there we go. So we've started a new sequence. Now notice, because I only had one bin open over here, I only had one bin open, it put it by default into the interview bin. And it's kind of important to keep the sequences separate. That is like your main document you're building. And bins have been known to get corrupted because of bad media, whether it's created or imported. And if the sequence is in the same bin as that could get corrupted, and basically meaning you're going to start all over again. So let's open up a sequence. I don't like that one. Let's open up this one. There's a bunch of sequences. So I'll click here, and this is where the bins get tabs so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to go back to that interview bin, and I'm going to grab this and drag it up and drop it into the sequence bin. And so there it is. And it's not a good idea to keep things listed as untitled, so I'm going to go dog demo, which is what we're doing. Okay, so now I have dog demo. Notice the name comes up here, and it's that one shot of her. Let's get another one. I'm just going to randomly pick some things. Doesn't really matter for our demonstration. There's another clip. Going to overwrite it in, and I'll do one more. Begin. And again, I would have listened to it and make sure that's what I want. Pop it in. So now I have a sequence of many shots of that lady with the dog on her lap. Let me go back to my interviews, pop in the lady we call Snar Lady, and just start grabbing pieces of her. But, suppose I want to put her in between. I don't want to see on my sequence here. Here's the timeline. I don't want to see, this lady back to back talking. I'd like to have the Snar Lady in between. That's fine. I can do that. Remember, the whole nonlinear editing process is not to worry about doing it exactly correct from the beginning to the end. Okay, it's about putting in your material and then adjusting it. So these two arrows here are the ones used to place things into the sequence. So in this case, I'm going to drag my cursor here at this edit point, holding down the command key on the keyboard. It will snap it right in between, and you can see, I can see here, this little L tells me I'm at the beginning of that clip. So I know I'm good. Here's the piece I want, and by using the splice in, you'll see this kind of pop over, splice it in, boom. So now we have her, then her, beautiful, then back to her again, and just for the sake of argument, let's place the Snarl Lady in between here as well. We'll get a different piece. Again, it doesn't really matter for what we're doing right now. This is just going over the tools and place that in. So now I've built a sequence with Dog Lady, Snarl Lady, Dog Lady, Snarl Lady, etc. Now, once you have your elements placed inside the timeline, now you can start moving them around, basically using these keys here. Okay, we have the segment mode, which is used to click on a clip and move it somewhere else. And then we have these guys, which will remove things from the timeline. Extract will take a piece out and close up the space. Lift will take a piece out but leave a blank space. So let's just quickly demo that. So I'm looking here. We have her talking, but all this stuff I don't want. So in the timeline, I'm going to assume this is where I want to be. I'm going to put an in point and then go to the end. I'm using the command key to snap right to the end. Put an out point, correct? And now that I have that portion selected, if I use extract, well, if I do lift, it will leave a blank space, which I don't want, because otherwise I have to fill that with something. So I'm going to go Command Z on the keyboard to put it back, to undo that. And if I use extract, it will take it away. And now you sort of made it shorter, and we have her, and then we have her. So that's the importance of these two. And you need to have an in and an out point to delineate to Avid how much you want to take out. So it's important. You can't just click on something, you have to do that. Meanwhile, using the segment mode arrows, and they also live here in this little guy, but using this, the red one, I click the red one, it allows me to grab something and move it down further. I'd like to point out that over here, link selection toggle will keep the associated elements of a clip. By that I mean here we have a video and two audio, so it's going to keep those together as I move it around. If I unclick this, then when I grab something, nothing happens. Then when I grab something, you see it separates it. Now, sometimes you may want that to happen. So it's just a choice, but usually I think we edit with this on. Now, suppose I want to move something somewhere else in the timeline. So here we have a clip of Snarl Lady. Let's say I want to put that with her other clip for some reason. I want to put it here. Okay, so I put my blue cursor here at the beginning, and I'm going to put an in point just so I know. I don't need an in point. I don't want to confuse you, but this way I know that's the point I want to be to, just in case my cursor moves, okay? That's just a safeguard. And now with the yellow segment arrow, I can click that and make sure it's yellow. Sometimes if you see here, one of the features Avid has, I think it's unfortunate, is that if you have both of them click, if you click towards the top of a clip, it turns red. Towards the bottom of a clip, it turns yellow. So make sure it's yellow, and I'm going to grab it, hold down Command, so that it will go exactly to the point where I wanted. They'll snap to it. Okay, and now we can see we put those two back to back. Whether we like that or not, that's what we have. and perhaps we want to space things out a little bit, so we can use these arrows to do that. So essentially, remember that these two arrows are used to get your information into the timeline, and this group of four arrow icons are used to move things and remove things from the timeline. And you don't need an in and out point with these, but you do with the extract and lift, and you do to some degree with the splice in and override. And so if I want to move this, click red. I'll move this down a little bit. Whoops, got to be careful. This can happen if your finger moves up, so you want to be careful of that. You can always move it back. Non-linear editing means you can always fix it. Move it around. Let's say I want to leave some space. So there we go. And I would cover those up with some kind of B-roll, stills or some B-roll. Let's say that's my whole thing. So that's pretty much a review of the basic icons that we use. I just want to review one other thing. That's the workspaces on the side, which are very important. This is relatively new addition to Avid. Here we are in the edit workspace, also known as the source record. Source record. This is the basic workspace for building and modifying your sequence. We go down to the color workspace. Notice how everything changes, and this is used to adjust the brightness, color, hue, many things that you can do, and we'll have a separate lesson on that. Effects. In Avid, you have to add an effect to a clip in the timeline, and we're going to have a separate lesson on that. And then audio, adjusting the audio, and guess what? We're having a separate lesson on that. And as you edit, it's kind of important to remember to return back after you've adjusted things to the edit. So there's the first review lesson. You have your bins, you get stuff into the bins, you look at your stuff, you select, you drop it here, get the pieces you want, edit them into a sequence, and then adjust your sequence using these arrows. And as we move on, we'll see then how to export it, how to adjust the audio level, the color, etc., how to make effects, including titles. All right, so that is the first lesson for you to have and review.